For just 1 second.
Okay, I'm ready.
Hey everybody, how's it going?
Hi.
We're not in the time cave, as you can tell. We're on location
At my house.
at April's house. So our cameraman, or camerawoman, as my wife Ashley, she bailed. She's outside, just letting us do our video thing.
Yeah.
But anyways, it's all right. So this is April, and is a good friend of ours, and we were talking about doing a cool co-content video talking about old-time radio.
Yes, I can't wait. We have a couple shows for you that we're going to tell you about, and I lean to Rob for the history because he is like an encyclopedia, but I can at least tell you what these shows are about.
Well, don't let her fool you. She's sharp as a tack as well.
I know my history, but I prefer his delivery.
Oh, stop. Anyways, we have a little set dressing. I brought a very original NBC studio banner that would hang from a microphone. Who knows where that was at? That might have even been at the premiere of Marie Antoinette in 1938 with Norma Shearer. I know I've seen footage of Don Wilson introducing the stars as they arrived at the Carthay Circle premiere of Marie Antoinette. And
Don Wilson
from
the Jack Benny
That's
program.
right.
He was the announcer.
Yep, all through the Jello and the Lucky Strike years.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a long time. That show was on the air from like 32 maybe?
It goes back early.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was very early. I think 32, 33 at least.
Right?
Yeah. And then he just kept on announcing for Jack all the way through the 40s and 50s. And it's really interesting about radio. Once television came on the scene, it didn't cancel out radio.
Surprise.
These guys still did their radio show. So it's really neat that they juggled both medias. That's the word.
Jack Benny and George Burns and Gracie Allen did
Burns
that.
and Allen, yes.
That was really great.
Great stuff.
Jack Benny, that one I think was really interesting for me because there are the dynamics between all of the characters. We've got, what do we got? We got Dennis Day.
Dennis Day.
He was the singer.
Yeah.
Then we've got Mary Livingston, who was actually his real wife.
That's
but,
true. Played his good friend.
There you go.
Yeah.
Sometimes they dated.
Yeah, right.
Right? We've got, with Remley,
that was Phil Harris.
Phil Harris.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, well, you of course. I mean, with Jack Benny, you forgot Eddie Rochester.
Oh, that's my
really
favorite.
He made that show.
He really did. He was actually the most popular, even more popular than Jack. I did an episode on them in my channel. Just
yes,
in case you
actually
wanted
look
to know.
it up. It's a great episode. It's a good one.
This is one of my favorite comedy shows because Jack Benny is the butt of the joke, right? So everyone gets to show off their comedic chops.
Yes.
Right?
It's true. It's true. And, Phil Harris always had the whole stick about having a band that was either in jail, out of jail, or on probation. And they hardly ever wore shoes. And they're mostly, they were always reading the racing form and never had shoes. So that was a funny ongoing joke with the Phil Harris Orchestra, which is amazing. So if you had never heard his orchestra in their recordings, definitely look up his orchestra. It's fantastic stuff. But yeah, Jack Benny is definitely one of my top favorite radio shows in the comedy genre, as well as Burns and Allen, and Life of Riley.
Life of Riley, Great Gildersleeve.
Great Gildersleeve, with Willard Waterman, I think. Yeah, that's right. And then William Bendix as Life of Riley. Just amazing stuff. Like, I wanted to share just a quick little story how I fell into the rabbit hole of OTR. And it was this an afternoon on a Sunday, and I was bored, and it was before dinner. I was just tuning the dial on my parents' hi-fi, and of course there was this. I tripped upon what was it? KPCC. It was out of Pasadena City College, and they had John and Larry Gassman with the Same Time, Same Station program. I think they stopped that show only because PCC went to All Talk and NPR News, which is really sad because they had such great lineups. During the week, they actually played classic American music from 9 to 3 p.m. And on Saturdays, it was the Chuck Cecil swinging years. But they also did the OTR stuff on Sundays, and that was really neat. It was 2 hours of radio, and they played a lot of offbeat shows. They did a lot of the Halls of Ivy. They did the a lot of the different serials, comedies. They did the
First time I heard Flash
King's
Gordon.
Road. Yeah, Flash Gordon. They also did the Lux Radio Theater too.
Oh, that's really good. They had was it Lux that had the actual stars of the movies?
It's true. They did a lot They recreate a lot of the films in a shorter version.
I think it's like an hour.
At least an hour.
Amazing. I mean, it's really great. It'll put you if you're a person that doesn't want to watch a whole full movie and you just want the cliff notes, that's your show.
And it's interesting because if you're into that classic film and you have some DVDs, good chances are in the bonus features they have the radio show.
Oh, really? I've never looked at it.
Yeah, I've actually looked through bonus features of one of my favorite films is It Happened One Night.
Oh, it's a good one.
And they have the radio show, the Lux Radio Theater show of It Happened One Night from 34.
I think so.
34, yeah. But it's just amazing. Radio was such a powerful, media of that time, and it really started getting to its maturity by the 40s, but as early as the late 1920s, there was some programming, but the sad fact about the 20s is they never recorded any of their shows. It was all live, off the cuff, just boom. You throw your stars in front of the microphone, and that's it. They didn't really record anything for posterity, except for a few things. So there's some bits out there that you can find on the internet that have been digitized, but it's not.
It's not plentiful.
No, it's not plentiful. Speaking of OTR, a friend of mine actually sent me a complete day's broadcast from September 21st of, I want to say 1939, from CBS in New York. And they recorded the entire day's broadcast because FDR was going to make a big speech. And I was like, I got to hear this thing. Well, I still haven't heard the entire thing because it's an entire day.
It's long.
It starts at 6 a.m. and I think it goes all the way to like 1 a.m. the next morning. So, but definitely look that up. It's September 21st, 1939, and archive.org or even YouTube probably can be.
YouTube's always the easiest resource that most people will go to first.
It's
and
true.
Then after that, you go to archive.org.
Yeah, and it's a great place.
Yeah.
But yeah, we were talking about comedies, we talked about news, we talked about a lot of different things, but another thing I really enjoyed is sci-fi.
Oh, yes,
Sci-fi's
sci-fi.
great.
So many great shows. Which my favorites are... I don't want to steal yours, though.
Oh,
okay,
no, go for
so,
it.
all right. Suspense, and probably X-1... And there's one more that I really liked, but I bet you probably have it.
Well, I don't know. I kind of like Lights Out.
Well then.
Yeah.
Why don't you pontificate on it?
Oh.
Come on, history man. Give us some history.
Well, Lights Out was a really interesting program. It came out in the 40s.
Yeah.
And it was very short-lived. It
Maybe
didn't
2
take...
years?
Yeah, 2 years at tops.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of episodes that are available, which is sad because they are really... How I should say, well, it's like ghost stories around a campfire, but radio form, and they're very psychological. And the whole premise of the show starts out with the announcer telling you to turn your lights out, and and also there's a disclaimer that if you're weak of heart or mind, to change the channel.
Yes.
And that's like, whoa, okay, we're going to get into some dark, juicy stuff here. And I'm like, when I first heard that show, it was on John and Larry Gassman's program on KPCC, and I was like. Yeah, I was listening to it on my Walkman, laying in my bed, and I'm like...
On your Walkman.
Oh, yeah.
It was a while ago.
Yeah, it was a while ago. It was back in the old early 90s, but I was like, oh, okay, so I made sure... Well, the lights were already out, it was night, and I was just like, okay, just laying in the dark, listening to the show, and I'm like, this is scary. This is scary. But it's an interesting thing. There was an actual study, or many studies, I'm sure, but I was told of one that...
You know of one specifically.
I do. Sadly, I don't know what college, but they took one group of students and threw them in a room and listened to an old radio show, like a drama or a scary drama show. And then another group went into another room and watched a scary movie. When they emerged, guess what group was more scared and more psychologically disturbed?
I'm going to go with the ones that listen to the radio show.
You're correct. It was. Yeah.
Thanks, Professor.
Yeah, right. The mind is an interesting place. It actually can fill in a lot of blanks and actually kind of create more of a dramatic scene than what a lot of filmmakers have perceived. Well, that's changed. I stay away from a lot of scary movies because
I know it's too visual
It's
for
too
me.
visual.
I want to
Yeah.
use my imagination. That's
Yeah.
actually why I listen to a lot of these radio shows in the dark.
Yes.
Right? Because you can let your imagination run wild.
Yeah.
I especially feel like that for the sci-fi, the horror, and I don't know, probably even comedy, just only because I feel like I can put myself into that time.
It's true.
You know?
No, a dimly lit room is definitely really appropriate. I mean, there's been times where I would sit around our old Sears Silvertone in the living room, and sadly, there's no OTR and AM radio anymore. So I have to take like another device and hook it up to the radio, which I've managed to do, and I'll listen to an old broadcast. And say like on December 7th, I'll listen to the rebroadcast of the bombing of Pearl Harbor when the news affiliates just got the word, and I listened to it as it was unfolding. I'll sit there and smoke my pipe and kind of put myself in that moment, and you hear. Or the December 8th broadcast of FDR's declaration of war. And that whole broadcast, that whole speech is amazing. It really is a great speech. So if you haven't heard it, I know we all heard the first bits of it, some of the key parts of it, but the entire speech it's amazing. And at the end of the program, everyone's cheering and it's like, whoa, everyone's on board.
You could feel the emotion.
The emotion and the energy is electrifying. And then also the announcer says, we just got word we're not supposed to be in this chamber, so we are cutting our report and we're leaving.
Whoops!
So
Don't want to get arrested.
Well, glad that you were there, CBS. You know,
Right?
But anyways, but yeah, putting yourself in that situation really does a lot, because you're sitting there and like people like us, we really love history. I mean, as you see, we dress the period, and you really time travel. I mean, so you're like, oh, time travel's not real. It doesn't exist.
It does exist in these radio shows.
It does. Yeah, and even the films and a lot of the media of that era, in certain settings, you really it takes you back. Yeah. Even though that we're pretty young and we never experienced it ourselves, but you get a pretty good idea.
You do. I mean, I know specifically for me when it comes to radio, when I think of like the best time period that I listen to, the golden age, as it were, I usually put it between like the mid 40s to the even late 50s. It's really good. You know, they came out with wonderful detective series. Raymond Chandler had one.
Oh my goodness! I mean, yes, Philip Marlowe.
Marlowe, Private Detective. It's one of my favorites.
That's a great one.
Yeah.
A lot of good detective slang. And
right? Hard-boiled, like where that whole hard-boiled detective came from, you listen to these radio shows. They've got Richard Diamond, they've got Jeff Regan, which actually...
Johnny Dollar.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Definitely check out Jeff Regan, though, because that one starred Jack Webb of Dragnet fame, and you can really hear him cutting his chops, and the alliteration and the prose is wonderful. Like when you think hard-boiled detective, I think Jeff Regan. I do.
That's awesome. See, I'm not familiar with Jeff Regan. I'm going to have to look him up. Yeah, absolutely. We'll have to do that. We'll have to have an old-time radio night and have dinner and put on some old shows. I'll bring one of my radios that's rigged for MP3, and we can sit around there and have
comfy couch.
Yeah, some
drinks.
Hot totties or whatever.
Yeah.
Or just toddies.
We're just gonna plan a get together while we're here.
Yeah, exactly. Right. I know.
All right. So let's get back to the radio shows.
Yes,
what else do we got?
Well, there was. We covered some crime.
We did.
We covered some science fiction.
We did. We got some comedy.
Yeah, we got comedy in there, and of course there was the big band remotes.
There you go.
You could listen to any band that you liked at that time and listen to it live on location at different ballrooms, and it was really funny. A friend of mine, we went down to the Palladium one night. This was a couple of years ago.
Story time.
Yeah, story time. So we took the old 40 Dodge out, and we got a pack of Lucky Strikes, and we went down to the Palladium, and we sat out front of the Palladium, and I had one of my Zeniths it was a portable one, and we put one of the broadcasts of Glenn Miller from the Palladium from about 1941. We sat in front of the Hollywood Palladium, which has been restored. It looks as it did in 1941. And we were listening to this broadcast that originally animated. Yeah.
You got it.
You got the word. It was broadcast from there.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I sound like Mel Blanc in the Porky Pig, right? And so
We forgive you.
we sat there and we had a lucky strike and just listened to the Glenn Miller show from the Palladium, in front of the Palladium, in a car from that era, and there was just something magical about it. We were just sitting across the street in the car, and all you could see is the Palladium and the neon sign and everything, and it was eerie, but in a good way.
Listen, you time traveled.
It's
just
true.
talking about that.
It's true.
And I think probably a lot of it has to do with the fact that you also have like an old car, so
It helps.
You know,
It
when
does
you've got that vintage car and then you're in a space
Yeah.
that looks like, you know,
It's
it did back in the
not
day, and you've got
Yeah.
the radio show, you got your music going, it's
Yeah.
perfect.
It is. It is. And you hear the announcer, you hear the applause, you hear the commotion and behind the scenes.
It's real life.
It's real life. It is really a recording of that moment.
Mm-hmm.
And you hear people talking, you hear clanks of dishes and the waiters. It's just amazing. But it's interesting because the medium absolutely evolved. So back in the 30s, a lot of recordings are very scratchy. They haven't been digitally remastered too much. But through the 40s, fidelity became a thing. Some of the earliest recordings of, well, what they were trying to do was stereo, actually came out of the 20th Century Fox studios for the Glenn Miller movies that he made in 1941 and 42.
I think that's probably why my favorite times listening to it is when I can hear it well.
Yeah, exactly. I can't blame you for that. No, they really did get to the zenith in the late 40s through the 50s, and then right before the end when they pulled the plug on radio shows in the early 60s.
Right? You know, I remember though that Gerald Moore did like a reissue of like, was it Philip Marlowe? This is in like the 70s.
Really?
Yes, and you can,
Huh.
it's either the 60s or the 70s, because the reason why you can tell, besides the fact that I like looked it up, but I don't have my things right here right now.
Yeah.
But no, as you can hear the like jazzy music, like doo 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 like it's like I'm like, I see the 60s and rear their ugly heads. But no, he did that because he wanted to try and keep radio alive.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
That's
story
interesting.
time.
I tell you. You know, we have so much
We
more to
do,
talk about, but
but
we're kind of running short of time.
Right?
And my wife actually is here to have a slumber party with
We're
April.
gonna have a sleepover.
And I thought this is a great opportunity to do a co-host some content for the channel, and also a push for her channel.
April for You on
That's
YouTube.
right. Yep.
What's it about, Rob?
Well, it's all about films and a lot of different medium about the era and also Black history.
Yes, I'm fascinated by Black history from the 20s to the 70s. And talk about radio and silent film and all black cast films. Just a lot of hidden history that you might not know about, but that I find extra fascinating, and I definitely love sharing it with others. So, you know, if you are so inclined, please do come on over.
Yeah. I left the link in my last video to her page, but I'll definitely do it again for this video.
Aw.
So check it out. She just did one about Betty Boop, and it's a really fascinating episode.
Right?
So definitely check it out. And
we'll see you again.
Absolutely. We're going to do this again. I think it was a success.
Yeah.
I think we had a lot of fun. OTR, and we might even talk about a different topic.
Right?
Right?
We talk about a lot of interesting things. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, either it's vintage clothing, movies, just about anything from that era. So it's fun. All right. Well, like I said, our camera handler is not here, so I'm going to have to. Yeah, you're going to see me once more. Don't worry, it's just going to be brief. But thanks again. Tune in next time, and we'll be coming back at you. Thanks again.
Bye.
Bye.